My name is Amanda Blake. I'm 30 years old. And I never thought I'd be the kind of woman who questions whether her husband is trying to poison her. But there I was, sitting stiffly at the dining table in my sister-in-law, Vanessa's pristine Dallas home, staring at a cup of coffee that smelled wrong. Ethan, my husband of 4 years, stood behind me with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Don't you want to try the coffee I made just for you?" he asked. The aroma was strange, sharp, almost metallic. It reminded me of the time I ended up in the ER last month after drinking tea at Vanessa's place. The doctors couldn't explain it. They said I probably had a stomach bug, but I knew better. And now this. I glanced at Vanessa. She hadn't touched her cup. She was watching me too closely. "Ethan's been experimenting with new brewing methods," she said, swirling her spoon in the air. "He says it's all for you." There was something in her tone that made my skin crawl. I'd noticed things over the past 6 months, subtle things. Ethan texting at odd hours. Vanessa calling him more often than felt appropriate. The two of them whispering and glancing my way when they thought I wasn't looking. It wasn't always like this. When I first married Ethan, I felt welcomed into his family. But somewhere along the line, that warmth turned cold. Still holding the cup, I smiled and stood up. "Oh, I just remembered I need to make a quick work call. Vanessa, do you mind if I step into your study?" She blinked. "Sure, go ahead." I turned to leave, and as I passed the table, I let my hand brush against Vanessa's cup. I stumbled just slightly and in the motion, switched our mugs. "I'm such a klutz," I said with a little laugh. Vanessa raised an eyebrow but didn't say anything. I walked calmly toward the study, but my heartbeat pounded in my ears. I didn't want to believe what I suspected, but today I was done second-guessing myself. It was time to know the truth. From the study doorway, I kept my eyes locked on the dining room table. Vanessa lifted the coffee cup, my original cup, to her lips. I held my breath. She took a sip. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then, I noticed a slight tremor in her hand as she set the cup down. Her face paled. She shifted in her chair, unease washing over her. "James," she whispered, her voice tight. "Something's wrong." Ethan looked up, his brow furrowing. "What do you mean?" "I don't feel." She stopped mid-sentence, gripping the edge of the table. "What did you put in that coffee?" Ethan's eyes widened in horror. "Wait, that wasn't your cup." His voice was low, but I heard every word. "That wasn't your cup." I stepped into the room, my phone already recording. Then whose was it supposed to be? Vanessa's eyes locked onto mine, confusion quickly giving way to realization and then fear. "You switched them," she croaked. "You knew." "I had a hunch," I said, calmly dialing 911. "My sister-in-law appears to be having a reaction to something in her drink. She's conscious but shaking. The address is 2487 Willow Lane." Ethan rushed to Vanessa's side. Panic etched across his face. "You said it wouldn't be that strong," she hissed at him. "Just enough to make her miss the board meeting." My fingers tightened around the phone. The board meeting. I was set to present a high-value proposal for a client next week, one Vanessa had been vying for at her firm. She worked at a direct competitor. Suddenly, everything made sense. The tea last month. The breakfast 2 months ago that sent me to the hospital. They weren't coincidences. You were trying to make me sick on purpose?" I asked, my voice low and steady. Vanessa doubled over in her chair, groaning. "The tea was supposed to keep you home for the Johnson pitch," she muttered. "But you went anyway." Ethan looked like he wanted to disappear. "You said it would just make her a little sick," he stammered. "You said it wouldn't be traceable." Sirens wailed in the distance. Vanessa tried to sit up straight, her face contorted in pain. We were just trying to make her look unreliable, miss a few meetings, lose a few clients. My chest tightened, but not from fear. From clarity. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This was a calculated, months-long campaign. And I'd finally caught them. I crouched next to Vanessa just as the paramedics arrived. "You wanted to see me fail," I said quietly. "But now you're the one lying on the floor." She tried to speak, but the tremors returned. "Don't worry," I said, stepping aside to let the EMTs work. "I'll make sure they know exactly what was in that coffee." And I meant it. The paramedics moved quickly, placing Vanessa on a stretcher and checking her vitals. Her skin was clammy, her hands trembling uncontrollably. One of them asked me what she had consumed. A cup of coffee. But I believe it was laced with something, I answered calmly, still recording everything. I followed them into the ambulance. Ethan tried to come along, but I stopped him. You've done enough, I said, meeting his stunned eyes. Stay here. The police will want to speak with you. At the hospital, chaos surrounded us. Nurses called out vitals, machines beeped rapidly, and Vanessa lay on the gurney gasping through clenched teeth. Still, I remained composed. I had too much to focus on. In the waiting room, I sent the recording to my lawyer and backed it up to multiple email accounts. I wasn't taking any chances. I also prepared the list I'd quietly maintained over the past 6 months: dates, symptoms, locations, all tied to meals shared with Ethan and Vanessa. A nurse called me. Are you her sister? Sister-in-law, I corrected. She nodded. She's stable for now, but the doctor needs to speak with you. There are some unusual findings. Dr. Olivia Grant was a tall, sharp-eyed woman who wasted no time. There are substances in her blood that do not belong there, she said, flipping through a chart. Not drugs you'd find over the counter. We're talking about compounds used in clinical testing controlled materials. Do you know how she may have come in contact with these? I do, I replied. But I think you should hear this first. I pulled out my phone and played the recording from brunch. Dr. Grant listened in silence. Her expression shifted from concern to alarm. This is incredibly serious, she said. What you're describing and what we found indicates intentional contamination. Just then, Ethan appeared at the end of the hallway, pale and sweating. Amanda, he said, taking a step toward me. Let me explain. Stay back, Dr. Grant warned, pressing the call button on the wall. Security to room 412, please. 2 guards arrived within seconds. I just wanted to help her slow down, Ethan pleaded. She was burning out. Vanessa said we needed to do something. Nothing too serious, just make her rest. I raised an eyebrow. So you poisoned me to help me rest? I didn't mean for it to get this far, he said. We just wanted to make sure you missed the Henderson pitch. The Henderson pitch. The $1 million client who had requested me personally. That was the real reason. I was a threat to them, professionally, personally, financially. Dr. Grant looked at me. You mentioned earlier hospitalizations? I nodded. 3 times. All after meals with Ethan or Vanessa. The symptoms were always similar: nausea, dizziness, weakness. But nothing ever showed up conclusively. She frowned. I'll need to compare those incidents to what we found in Vanessa today. If the patterns match, we'll have very strong grounds. Detective Carla Monroe arrived shortly after. A calm, focused woman with decades of experience in domestic crimes. I've already listened to the recording, she said after introductions. And based on what the hospital found, we're looking at attempted murder. Ethan turned white. No, that's not what we meant. It was just a miscalculation. Detective Monroe didn't flinch. You calculated dosages, you recorded results, you coordinated multiple attempts over months. That's not an accident. That's a plan. I watched as Ethan slumped against the wall. And in that moment, I realized something. I wasn't afraid anymore. Detective Monroe led me into a private consultation room while security kept Ethan in the hallway. She pulled out a notepad and gestured for me to sit. I need to understand everything you've noticed over the past several months, she said. I took a deep breath and opened the document I'd been updating secretly on my phone, a timeline of meals, symptoms, and hospital visits. Every suspicious incident was logged. February 3rd, dinner at Vanessa's, stomach cramps. April 11th, tea at her house, dizziness and vomiting. June 2nd, breakfast with Ethan before my big presentation, severe nausea and blurred vision. Detective Monroe's eyes narrowed as she flipped through each entry. You've been quietly building your own case, she said, smart. I had to. Every time I brought it up to Ethan, he made me feel like I was overreacting, like I was imagining things. And the doctors? She asked. They ran tests, but everything came back inconclusive. The symptoms would fade before they could identify the cause. I reached into my purse and pulled out a second phone. This is my backup, I said. I've been recording conversations when I'm around them. Nothing direct, but enough to show intent. She plugged in headphones and pressed play. Vanessa's voice came through clearly. The Henderson account is worth millions, James. We can't let her ruin everything. Just stick to the plan. A few days of illness should be enough. Then Ethan's voice, I've got something stronger this time. She won't make it to the presentation. Detective Monroe paused the recording, her face unreadable. That's not just intent, she said. That's coordination and escalation. Just then, an officer entered with an evidence bag in hand. We searched Mr. Blake's office at Westridge Marketing, he said. Found this in his bottom drawer. Inside the bag were 3 small vials with clinical labels, compounds used in experimental pharmaceutical trials. There were also handwritten notes detailing dosages, reactions, and dates. I scanned the documents and froze. He was tracking me. Each note corresponded with one of the dates I'd gotten sick. He wrote things like, dose too low, only 6 hours of symptoms, or increase for stronger reaction before Johnson pitch. You were documenting me like a test subject, I whispered. Detective Monroe didn't say a word. She just stared through the glass window into the hallway, where Ethan now sat, pale and trembling, between 2 guards. She turned back to me. We'll need warrants for both their homes. And we're contacting the pharmaceutical lab, where these compounds originated. As we left the room, I saw Vanessa through the glass window of her hospital room. She looked small now, no more sharp words, no smug smiles. Just a woman curled up in pain, the weight of her actions crashing down. I stepped inside. She tried to straighten up. You were ruining everything, she said through gritted teeth. I spent years building my client portfolio. And then you come along, and suddenly everyone wants to work with you. So you tried to kill me? I asked, my voice quiet. No, she insisted. We just wanted to push you out just for a while. But James got carried away. He said he could fix it. You mean he said he could get rid of me? Her face twitched. She didn't deny it. Dr. Grant entered with the toxicology report in hand. The concentration of chemicals in today's coffee was far higher than anything we've seen in Amanda's previous visits. If she'd consumed it, the outcome could have been fatal. Silence fell over the room. Vanessa slumped back, her composure crumbling. Detective Monroe leaned toward her. You weren't just trying to discredit her, you were trying to erase her. And for the first time, Vanessa had nothing left to say. The sun was beginning to set as I walked out of Vanessa's hospital room, the sky streaked with orange and fading blue. The hallway outside was silent, the kind of silence that follows truth, finally cracking through a well-polished lie. Ethan was still sitting in the same chair, head in his hands, flanked by 2 security guards. He looked up when I approached, his eyes glassy and full of a desperation I no longer responded to. Amanda, he said, standing slowly. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I was trying to protect us, protect you. I stared at him. This man I once trusted with my whole heart. Protect me. By drugging me for months. By lying to my face and conspiring behind my back. She pushed me, he said, glancing toward Vanessa's room. She made it sound like we had no choice. You always had a choice, I replied. You chose power. You chose reputation. And when I started shining too bright, you tried to dim my light. Detective Monroe joined us with a folder in hand. We're formally moving forward with charges, she said. Attempted murder, conspiracy, unlawful possession of controlled substances, and medical endangerment. Ethan didn't speak. His shoulders sagged under the weight of his own downfall. You used to cheer for me, I added quietly. Back when we met. Back when I was just the smart girl you loved, not the woman who threatened your ego. He turned away, his voice barely audible. I didn't know how to stop it once it started. I took one last look at him. You could have told the truth. Detective Monroe gestured for the guards to escort him out. He didn't resist. No more lies. No more hiding. Just silence, broken only by the sound of footsteps down a sterile corridor. Back in the waiting area, Dr. Grant approached with an update. Vanessa will recover, physically. But the legal side of this, it's not going away. I never wanted it to end like this, I said. But you wanted the truth, she replied. And you got it. Most people never do. As I left the hospital, my phone buzzed with a message from my boss. The Henderson presentation is still yours if you want it. We stand behind you. I stared at the screen, tears welling up, but not from sadness, from release. I had survived being poisoned, manipulated, gaslighted, and now I was still standing. Still strong. Still me. I walked to my car under the darkening sky, a quiet resolve settling into my bones. They tried to erase me. but I was never going anywhere. 1 month later, I stood at the front of the Henderson boardroom, delivering the biggest pitch of my career. The room was silent, focused, engaged. I moved through my presentation with clarity, purpose, and confidence, none of which had been shaken by what happened. If anything, I was stronger now, sharper, undeniable. When I finished, the lead executive stood and clapped. "This is the most compelling vision we've seen," he said. "We'd be proud to have you lead our account." I smiled, nodding my thanks. But inside I was thinking about how close I'd come to losing it all, to being sidelined by the people who should have protected me. After the meeting, I sat in my car and took a deep breath. This wasn't just a professional win. This was my return to myself. Not long after, both Vanessa and Ethan were formally indicted. The evidence was overwhelming. Between the recordings, the texts, the toxicology reports, and the pharmaceutical substances found in their possession, the case was airtight. Neither of them tried to reach out again. And I didn't look back. You see, revenge didn't come from yelling, or slamming doors, or taking cheap shots. It came from surviving. From refusing to shrink. From telling the truth. From standing tall when others tried to take you down quietly. I share this not to relive the pain, but to remind you, if your gut is telling you something's wrong, listen. If people are making you doubt your own reality, start documenting. Stay alert. Stay grounded. You never owe silence to those who are slowly trying to erase you. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is calmly change the ending. And for anyone who's ever felt manipulated, overlooked, or betrayed, I see you. You're not alone. If this story moved you, I invite you to like, share, and comment below. Your voice matters. Your story matters. And sometimes, what they never see coming is that you're just getting started.